TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the home. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution. Trump wages war on Africa and Nigeria is a pawn to trap the three kings. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform. Y'all, with the war, the imperialist war on Africa is waging, and Nigeria is a willing puppet. Let's get into the content. Salute.
And I was like, what is this writing thing?
A short video clip showing Russian troops patrolling parts of Mali's capital, Bamako, has been circulating widely online, reigniting conversations around Russia's growing security footprint in the Sahel. Around the same time, allegations surfaced claiming that Burkina Faso may have used newly acquired foreign military technology to bring down a Nigerian military jet during recent tensions between both countries. While no independent verification has confirmed these claims, the timing alone has raised eyebrows across West Africa. What many Africans are now asking is simple but unsettling. Are we witnessing quiet military realignments taking place across the region, far away from public scrutiny?
Guys, this is getting funnier and getting more exciting. You know, I made a post today and I said Nigeria has purchased 24 fighter jets from Italy. And just after that, I repeat, just after that, Russia deployed special forces to Ouagadougou, the capital city of Burkina Faso. Russia IL-76 was seen carrying 50 military personnel, and landed in Ouagadougou, the capital city of Burkina Faso. And Russia claimed they deployed these military personnel, special forces to be precise, because of the rising tensions. And I was like, what is this rising tension? Now, it's either it's about internal conflict, I mean terrorism in Burkina Faso, or Nigeria. That is the two things Burkina Faso is facing at the moment. I just hope these people are not after Nigeria. I just hope Nigeria as well is not after Burkina Faso, because I realized Nigeria purchased fighter jets out of nowhere and Russia deployed special forces into Burkina Faso out of nowhere as well. So guys, are you thinking what I'm thinking? I just hope we are safe in Africa. We don't want war. We just hope they can end on a diplomatic level. So I might be wrong, right? It might be to tackle terrorism in Burkina Faso. But with the way things are going, it is likely, it is what I'm thinking. I hope we are not going into war with Burkina Faso. And I hope they are not going into war with us. Thank you and stay tuned.
Adding another layer to this conversation, a Nigerian TikToker recently released a video explaining how the Nigerian Air Force is undergoing a major transformation. According to his claims, Nigeria is acquiring modern fighter jets from Italy, aircraft described as advanced, precision-based, and capable of long-range strike missions. He went further to suggest that these new jets could dramatically shift the balance of air power in West Africa by 2026. These claims, while yet to be officially detailed by Nigerian authorities, have sparked intense debate online. Why now? Why such a significant Air Force upgrade at this particular moment, especially following Nigeria's recent military incident involving Burkina Faso?
Salute, fam.
Supporters of the upgrade argue that Nigeria, as Africa's most populous nation, has long needed to modernize its air capabilities to tackle terrorism, banditry, and regional instability. Others, however, believe the timing sends a strategic message, not just to internal threats, but to neighboring countries aligned under the AES bloc.
While you are online, hyping Burkina Faso like a rising superpower, Nigeria is quietly upgrading its air force in ways that completely change the balance of power in West Africa. Nigeria is in the advanced stages of acquiring up to 24 M346 FA light combat aircraft from Italy, alongside 12 AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters. Now, what does this mean in a real-world scenario involving Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso? The M346 FA has a range of roughly 1,900 kilometers. From northern Nigerian air bases like Sokoto or Katsina, that reach allows Nigeria to strike Niger's capital, strike Burkina Faso's capital, and cover large parts of northeastern Mali. That means Nigeria can project air power deep into AES territory without forward basing. Armed with AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles for air-to-air interception, AGM-65 Maverick missiles for precision ground strike, Mach 82 and Mach 83 bombs for infrastructure, logistics, and base suppression, Nigeria gains the ability to control airspace and deny AES freedom of movement. For the AH-1Z Viper, this is where any ground advance fantasy collapses. Each Viper can carry up to 16 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, up to 76 Hydra 70 unguided rockets, or up to 38 advanced precision key weapon system rockets. In a scenario where AES ground forces attempt to move through Niger toward Nigerian territory, these helicopters are built to destroy armored vehicles, neutralize artillery, wipe out supply convoys before they reach the battlefield. AES simply does not have the layered air defense systems required to counter sustained attack helicopter operations. This isn't the usual baseless propaganda you like listening to. This is force projection reality. These acquisitions ensure that the Nigerian Air Force maintains clear superiority across West Africa with reach, sustainment, and precision that AES cannot match. So the next time you're online hyping Burkina Faso like it's about to humble Nigeria, remember this: air power largely decides modern wars, and Nigeria is playing in a different league.
Could Nigeria be repositioning itself militarily in response to the growing influence of Russia in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger? Or is this simply a long overdue modernization that has nothing to do with regional power rivalries? Some analysts point out that military upgrades do not automatically mean war preparations. Nations routinely strengthen their defenses for deterrence, sovereignty protection, and regional peacekeeping responsibilities. Still, the optics matter. When military movements, foreign troop sightings, and advanced weapons acquisitions all happen within a short time frame, public speculation is inevitable. And then there's the bigger question many Africans are quietly asking. Is West Africa drifting into a new era of silent militarization, where alliances are shifting faster than citizens are being informed? As these conversations continue online, reactions remain mixed. Some Nigerians see the Air Force upgrade as a necessary step toward national security and regional leadership. Others worry that escalating military postures across the Sahel could increase mistrust and push the region closer to unnecessary confrontation.
Family, ECOWAS has done what they know how to do best, right? So this week, the ECOWAS declared a state of emergency in the entire West Africa region, right? And they are saying that democracy is at stake in ECOWAS, that they need to find ways to tighten their security, right? Are you getting their motives? ECOWAS claims that their security is at risk and they need to find ways to tighten security and to protect their democracy. ECOWAS complains of the several coups and the attempts that happened this past couple of days and past couple of weeks in West Africa. In the middle of all that, we cannot really figure out one concrete thing that they can point to be honest and show us, okay, these things are happening because our weaknesses are this and that and that and that. They cannot point it out. But here we are going to help ECOWAS. So our dear sirs and ma'ams, why the entire West African region is being hit and would continue to be hit by coup d'etats is because the first thing, what you guys call democracy, is a criminal setup which you guys have leveraged to continue to make Africans to suffer, and to suffer. Coup d'etats will not end in West Africa and Africa at large if you guys don't want to respect the citizens, if you guys don't want to work for the people, right? Africans are beginning to see that truly leaders could serve their people, like what is happening in the Sahel. So as long as you guys will not want to serve your people, you prefer to embezzle the people's money and go keep it in your bank accounts abroad. You don't care if the people are unalived. Terrorism is hitting your countries and they are unaliving people in their masses. Even your military that you deploy to the front line, they cannot face those terror guys because the weapons that the terror guys are using are way more sophisticated than theirs. And let me tell you, our presidents of the ECOWAS and those in Africa, as long as the military continues in their disgruntled state, know that they are going to pounce back on you and they would overthrow your government. If you do not want to shield your military, you don't want to equip your military, you don't want to serve the military, you don't want to put your people first, you don't want to provide basic necessities for your people. Your people don't have light, they don't have water, they don't have basic food to eat 3 square meals a day. In the meantime, your children are schooling in the best schools abroad, while back home, our brothers and sisters, our children, they do not have decent schools to go to. When they even manage to go to the broken schools, they don't have as little as benches to sit on, and you expect that the coup d'etats would not continue to hit your countries? ECOWAS has become a court where A protects B. You guys sit and orchestrate constitutional coup d'etats. And when the military orchestrate a military coup d'etat, you cry foul. How many times have we cried about the constitutional coup d'etats that almost all of you ECOWAS presidents have orchestrated? You come to power, 5-year limit or 4-year term, you do it twice, you guys come in, you change it. And ECOWAS is not doing anything about that. You change it from 5, maybe to 7, and you make it a 10. And then you kick your political opponents out of electoral list. You commit all forms of atrocities. You just hold the entire country captive. You cannot orchestrate all these constitutional and electoral coup d'etats and expect that the military, if they are revolutionary, are going to keep quiet. So ECOWAS, if you do not want military coup d'etats to happen anymore, you need to start right now and begin to do what benefits the people. And most importantly, if you are not ready to break loose from colonial shackles, I want to guarantee ECOWAS and all African leaders expect more coups that will be on the way. Let me know what you think in the comment section, guys.
Before we go further, support the Africa News Channel by joining our channel membership or sending a super thanks. Your support helps us keep bringing you balanced, independent analysis on Africa and global affairs. Disclaimer: this report is a news analysis based on publicly circulating videos, online discussions, and unverified claims from multiple sources. No part of this video is intended to promote violence, encourage hostility, or accuse any country of preparing for war. All military references are discussed strictly for informational and analytical purposes, in line with YouTube's community guidelines. Viewers are encouraged to seek official statements and verified sources for confirmed facts. West Africa stands at a wave is rippling through West Africa tonight, as fresh signals emerge from Guinea-Bissau's military leadership suggesting the country may be preparing to walk away from ECOWAS and align itself with the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES. Welcome to the Africa News Channel. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any important updates shaping Africa's future. Guinea-Bissau has long been one of West Africa's most politically fragile states, but this latest development marks a potentially historic turning point. Following the recent consolidation of power by military leaders in Bissau, statements coming from within the new command structure indicate growing hostility toward ECOWAS and openness to joining the AES bloc led by Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger.
Yes, ECOWAS will soon be chasing its own shadow. Yes, they are about to lose another member. Guinea-Bissau, on the 18th of December, submitted a formal request to the National Transitional Council to withdraw from ECOWAS. The general who is now heading Guinea-Bissau, General Humta Nta, submitted a legal request to the National Transitional Council that he wants the country to withdraw from ECOWAS and also all the foreign troops that are within the country to leave the country. You guys remember that ECOWAS led a team that went to Guinea-Bissau in a bid. They wanted the leader in Guinea-Bissau to hand over power to the civilian rule, or they wanted the elections that was already going on before the coup to continue. But he rejected everything that they requested and said he is going to continue to be at the helm and then make a transition for re-election. He said he'll be there for 1 year. From the way things are unfolding, it means he will not be there just for 1 year. He has now submitted a request to the National Constitutional Council requesting them to approve unanimously for the country to withdraw from the ECOWAS. Immediately that request is granted, Guinea-Bissau will gradually and formally start the process to withdraw from the bloc, ECOWAS. Yes, they will be requesting to leave a bloc that when constitutional coups are made, they will never say a thing. When a leader refuses to provide basic amenities for its citizen, ECOWAS will not say anything. When things are going wrong, there are no pipe-borne water, no electricity, no farm-to-market roads, no food, ECOWAS will not say a word. ECOWAS will stay quiet. But the moment ECOWAS see that there is a coup, that is when ECOWAS will come in. When constitutional coups happen, ECOWAS will not say anything. When leaders, incumbents, decide to change the constitution of the country to expand their stay in power, extend their stay in power, ECOWAS will not say a thing. ECOWAS is actually behaving as if it is working for some people and not the people of the sub-region. It seems as if ECOWAS is working for the interests of countries like France and the West and not for the interests of the people within the sub-region. Yes, look at what happened in Cameroon. Did CEMAC, which is also a regional bloc, say anything? No. When people, especially the leaders ruling, do election malpractices, steal the votes of the people, ECOWAS will not say anything. Look at what happened in Tanzania. ECOWAS is not interested in anything. ECOWAS is interested in the president who is in power. They want to protect that president at the detriment of any other citizen within the country. Even if it's the president is not doing the right thing, ECOWAS will want to protect the person. How many times have we heard that ECOWAS is questioning the term of office of any leader? No. How many times have we heard that ECOWAS propped into an election that they saw that it was not conducted the right way? No, they never do these things. They protect the interests of their members, the president, their personalities, instead of the country, instead of the people that are saving them. So as we're speaking, Guinea-Bissau, under the leadership of Humta Ntaman, has submitted a formal request to the National Transitional Council to withdraw the country from ECOWAS. And you know where they're heading to, right? Probably they're heading to the Sahel. So let's watch out and see what's going to happen. Thank you so much for watching this video. That is the update I brought for you as we are speaking. On the 18th, which was 2 days ago, Humta Ntaman, who is the leader of Guinea-Bissau, submitted a formal request through the National Constitutional Council for the country to withdraw from ECOWAS. Let's see what happens. I'll remain your humble analyst, MC Edward. Thanks for watching this video.
At the heart of this shift is a deep sense of frustration with ECOWAS itself. Guinea-Bissau's new rulers accuse the regional body of selective enforcement, political pressure, and what they describe as external influence that prioritizes Western interests over African sovereignty. In their view, ECOWAS has moved from being a platform for regional cooperation to an institution that punishes governments that refuse to follow a prescribed political path. This argument mirrors the exact reasoning used by Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger when they formally broke away from ECOWAS. Those countries insisted they were no longer willing to accept sanctions, diplomatic isolation, or military threats tied to demands for rapid civilian transitions while facing serious internal security and economic challenges. And this is where the AES comes in. The Alliance of Sahel States presents itself as a bloc built on mutual defense, shared sovereignty, and resistance to foreign political pressure.
Una be say the coup in Guinea-Bissau, na Renji coup, na their leader, their president, Ambalo, na him do their Renji, come carry person, his own person, they do coup because the other person won, I mean the other person no win, they can't do a Renji coup. And I don't doubt it because anything is possible in Africa, especially right now. Anything is possible. But you get some kind of news where I can't hear now. I can't get double mind. If he no be that thing we will not talk. If he no be, because I heard. Now this one is not like confirmed. That's why I would say allegedly. I heard that the new leader, the military leader, what's that his name again? They say Hotanta and a man. I don't know. Hotanta something. Please, you people should pardon me. That the new military leader, please, if I don't pronounce your name correctly, I salute to say that they are leaving ECOWAS. That they are not making move to leave ECOWAS, like finally. When I not say ECOWAS suspended them. In ECOWAS, they go first start with suspension. If you can't suspend the person can't say, I know they come back again. You know now, if you be very stubborn student, you can understand. You know that school where you attend that time where they suspend you. You can't say, sure. I don't even like the school before. I know they come back. You can't make your parents to go and change you, put you in another school. Now, what thing they do now? They say they know one. They no one come back. ECOWAS come, they tell them, say if they no come back, they no go give them military support. They can't say, sure. Which military support you won't give us? Which mumu support you won't give us? Ogaga, sit down one place, I beg. And they're making moves to join the 3 Sahel nations. In fact, they're making another move to kick all the foreign military in their country. All those foreign people. According to the news, they said that these guys are in their country. They say they're making impact. They said they're making impact, but they're not seeing any impact they're making. Terrorism is there. Everything is just there. Things are so bad. And they say they're in the country to make impact. That there's an improvement. They're not seeing any improvements. That it's time for them to war. That is the news that I'm getting from the HQ. So if you're from Guinea-Bissau, please come and confirm. Is it what is happening? Waiting they all call. Like, since this military regime, this Hunter Anta, since he took over, is there any changes? Like, because it goes sweet my belly, it goes sweet me dry. If ECOWAS lose another member, oh no, there is joy in my heart and the joy in my coven whenever ECOWAS lose a member. If ECOWAS lose a member and they can't join the 3 Sahel nation, you go concept, we go come, they wait for next. Who is next? So please, you people should come and confirm this news, okay? Confirm the news under the comment section.
For military-led governments, it offers something ECOWAS currently does not: solidarity without conditions tied to Western-backed democratic timelines. Supporters of this shift argue that Guinea-Bissau sees the AES as a safer political home, one where military governments are not immediately treated as international pariahs. They point to growing cooperation among AES states in defense, finance, and regional development, including plans for joint military command structures and independent financial institutions. After this first major point, let us remind you that you can support the Africa News Channel by joining our channel membership or sending a super thanks. Your support helps us continue bringing you in-depth African news without compromise. But this possible realignment raises serious questions for ECOWAS. If Guinea-Bissau follows through, ECOWAS would face yet another blow to its credibility and unity. Once seen as one of Africa's strongest regional blocs, ECOWAS is now grappling with internal fractures, declining authority, and an inability to keep members aligned under a single political vision. Security cooperation is another major concern. ECOWAS has historically coordinated counterterrorism, peacekeeping, and regional stability efforts. As more states drift away, intelligence sharing weakens, joint operations become harder to coordinate, and regional threats risk becoming more fragmented and unpredictable.
Now, something strange happened. After the military coup d'etat, Ghana came in swiftly, immediately, and condemned the coup d'etat. They released a statement, which I'm going to read after we get into the detail. Ghana coming in to condemn is strange and unusual. The reason why I said it is strange and unusual is because the main body of ECOWAS and African Union have not yet released their statement before Ghana released its statement. What happened is that there was a joint statement from the delegations from African Union and ECOWAS who went there to observe the election. They were observing the election before the military took over. So they give their account with joint statement, like a body of ECOWAS and African Union, but the main institution has not yet released the statement. After these observers released their statement, then Ghana came in before even the entire body of ECOWAS or African Union can release a statement. That is why I said it is strange. I'm going to read the two statements from Ghana and the body that was sent there. They are in the country observing, and the military took over. They are joint statement representing ECOWAS and African Union. I'm going to read that also. Let's get right into the details. What exactly happened? A group of army officers in Guinea-Bissau, they call themselves High Military Command for the Restoration of Order. The name tells us that the purpose of this group is to restore order. Because of the name, High Military Command for the Restoration of Order, they have announced on Wednesday, 26 November 2025, that they are taking over the control of the entire country until further notice. They suspended the country's entire electoral process, including any results that were due. So this thing happened in the middle of electoral process, when after election and people were waiting for result, then they came in. What caused the whole thing? They also suspended media broadcasts and programs. Let's look at what exactly triggered the takeover and what else happened. Gunshots were heard earlier, according to report, on Wednesday near the presidential palace in the capital city of Guinea-Bissau. In addition to that, close to the offices of the Electoral Commission, there were gunshots also. Now, on Tuesday, a day before the takeover, both the president, the former president, should I call it? The incumbent president, Umaru Embalo, that's his name, and the main challenger, that is the main opposition, whose name is Fernando Diaz. Each of these two, they claim they had won the election. Yes, both of the candidates claim victory, even though official result had not yet been announced. The president, who is running for a second term, declared that, yeah, I won the election. And then the opposition also is saying that, yeah, we have won the election. Then there is tension, solid tension in the country. When something like that happens, both parties and their supporters, they are having hope. So when the election is, result comes out, and it favors the other side, then there is chaos. So that alone should tell you that the tension in the country is so high and can cause chaos after the final result is out. So the military came in and said, no, we are not going to wait until this nonsense happens. Then people will hit the street and they will give us command to start buying people left and right. We are seizing everything. How can both of you declare that you have won the election? This will cause chaos. Unlike other countries that the chaos will begin and the military will come in, no. The military said no, they will not wait until the chaos starts. They seize the country. That is why you have the High Military Command for the Restoration of Order taking over the country to do what? Set order. Because the country is going towards the path of disorderliness. What did the military do after seizing power? The army declared that it had assumed full power of the state. They shut down all borders, land, sea, and air. They suspended travel in and out of the country. They imposed.
Economically, the implications are just as serious. ECOWAS was designed to promote free movement, trade integration, and economic cooperation. Each potential exit chips away at these frameworks, threatening cross-border commerce, labor mobility, and long-term regional growth. Beyond ECOWAS, the wider West African region now appears to be heading toward a divided future, one shaped by two competing visions. On one side, ECOWAS-aligned states committed to traditional democratic structures and Western partnerships. On the other, AES-aligned governments emphasizing sovereignty, military-led stability, and alternative global alliances. This division could redefine diplomacy, security strategy, and economic cooperation across West Africa for years to come. Just before we conclude, here is our disclaimer. This report is for informational and educational purposes only and does not represent the views of any government, organization, or political group. And as West Africa stands at this crossroads, one question lingers quietly but powerfully. Will regional unity survive this era of military assertiveness, or is the map of West African cooperation being redrawn before our very eyes? Sources and key reporting used: regional security briefings, ECOWAS official statements, AES policy declarations, and regional diplomatic analysis from West African political observers. Support the Africa News Channel by joining our membership or sending a super thanks. Your contribution keeps independent African voices alive and heard.
We published a video 2 days ago analyzing US flights over Nigeria. We talked about a Gulf Stream V's pipeline circling from Ghana, gathering intelligence. We analyzed what that meant. We asked what would happen if surveillance turned into strikes. That same night, Christmas Day 2025, at least 12 Tomahawk cruise missiles slammed into what US Africa Command called ISIS camps in Sokoto State, northeastern Nigeria, near the Niger border. President Trump announced it on Truth Social. Powerful and deadly strikes against ISIS terrorist scum. And the Nigerian government confirmed it hours later, trying to pressure multiple militants unalived. When I saw the news, I checked the calendar because we literally just explained why American eyes were in Nigerian skies. And before most people even watched that video, the bombs had already dropped. So here is what we need to figure out. Was this coordination or coincidence? Was this Nigeria leveraging partnership or losing control? And most importantly, what just changed about how security works in West Africa? Because what happened on Christmas Day wasn't just an airstrike. It was a test. And depending on who you ask, it's either a turning point or a warning sign. Let me show you what really happened. According to eyewitnesses in Jabo village, near Tangaza local government area, the sky lit up red around 9 p.m. local time. Now, Omo Jabo, a local resident, told BBC Pidgin his house shook. The heat was so intense, people thought the sun had come back. Flames shot into the sky. The sound echoed across kilometers. Now, according to the US Africa Command, they hit 2 ISIS camps using what military analysts believe were Tomahawk cruise missiles, probably launched from a naval vessel in the Gulf of Guinea or from US aircraft operating in the region. General Michael Langley, AFRICOM commander. Now, most of you already know General Michael Langley. We talked about him extensively some few months ago. He said the operation used reliable intelligence and meticulous operational planning. The translation? They have been watching these targets for a while. Now, remember that Gulf 5 stream we talked about? The one flying from Accra, looping over northern Nigeria almost daily since late November? This is where surveillance strikes comes. That aircraft wasn't just taking pictures, it was building target folders. But here's where it gets complicated. Nigeria's Foreign Minister Yusuf Tuga went on Channels TV and confirmed that President Tinubu gave the go-ahead for strikes during a phone call with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Sokoto state government released a statement welcoming the joint Nigeria-US airstrike and confirming no civilian casualties. So on paper, this was cooperation, joint decision, shared intelligence, and coordinated execution. But if you listen to people on the ground in Jabo, you hear a different story. Now, multiple residents told BBC and PBS that there was no ISIS camps in that area, no foreign fighters, no terrorist training, just farmers, herders, and yes, some bandit groups, but not ISIS. One villager said, and I am paraphrasing, "We need protection, yes, but from who? We don't see ISIS here." So you have got intelligence saying ISIS camps. You have got AFRICOM saying multiple terrorists unalived. And you have got locals saying we don't know what you are talking about. So who is right? Are villagers genuinely unaware of ISIS operating nearby? Are they protecting groups they know aren't ISIS but fear being labeled? Or is the US defining ISIS more broadly than we think? Now, here is what we do know. Northwestern Nigeria, especially Sokoto and Zamfara, has been dealing with what the government calls banditry for over a decade. These are armed groups that kidnap for ransoms, raid villages, steal cattle, control rural roads. Now, some of these groups have connections to jihadist ideology, and some don't. Some pledge to ISIS when it's convenient for resources or legitimacy, then go back to being criminal enterprises. Violence in Nigeria's northwest unalived over 2,000 people in 2023 alone. And here is the kicker, about 70% of those victims were Muslim, not Christian. So when President Trump framed these strikes as protecting Christians from ISIS, there is truth in it, and it's also incomplete. But don't get me wrong, we need to give credit to President Trump on this issue. Presidents before Trump didn't draw attention to this situation. The African Union says nothing about this situation. ECOWAS says nothing about this situation. Trump has actually brought more light to the situation than any single person or organization before him. Yes, Christians have been attacked. Yes, ISIS-aligned groups operate in the region. But the violence is already economic. It's about land. It's about state failure. It's not neatly sectarian. And that matters because how you define the problem shapes the solutions you are willing to accept. Now, there is another group in that area called Lakurawa. They are a relatively new armed faction with suspected links to ISIS in the Greater Sahara. They have been active around the Nigeria border. According to BBC Pidgin, after the strikes, Nigerian police and military couldn't even reach the impact zones because fires were still burning. But Border Patrol reported seeing fighters fleeing across the border into Niger. So, instead of eliminating the threat, the strikes may have just displaced it. So here's my question for you. If you are Nigeria and a strike pushes armed groups into a neighboring country where they can regroup and come back later, did you win? Or did you just move the chess piece into someone else's chessboard? Drop your take in the comments because this isn't simple. President Bola could have made a choice. He would have said no to US strikes on Nigerian soil. He didn't. Path 1. Accept the help. Use American precision to hit targets Nigeria's own forces struggle to reach. Send a message that there will be consequences for attacks on communities. Path 2. Reject the offer. Preserve total sovereign control, but potentially let the violence continue while building domestic capacity slowly. He chose path 1. And depending on who you ask in Nigeria, that was either smart pragmatism or a dangerous precedent. Now, let's hear what Nigerians are saying right now. We are going to hear both sides. Sheikh Ahmad Gumi, a prominent Islamic cleric in northern Nigeria, he called for suspending US military ties. He argued the strikes risk escalation, that they could radicalize more young men, and that Nigeria is capable of handling its own security without foreign bombs. You see, his concern isn't unfounded. History shows that airstrikes without ground follow-up often scatter fighters rather than eliminate them. And when foreign powers start bombing your territory, even with permission, you are setting a precedent that's hard to reverse. Now, on the other side, Nigerian Catholic leaders and Christian communities in the region had a different reaction. Father Irapu, a Catholic priest, told reporters, "We have no chance against jihadists without US support. Trump means what he says." Now, for communities that have watched villages burned, schools attacked, churches targeted, the question isn't sovereignty in the abstract, it is survival in the immediate. And I get it. If your daughter was one of the 300 schoolgirls kidnapped last year, if your village was raided 3 times in 6 months, you might not care whose flag is on the jet that stops it. But governance isn't just about the next 6 months. It's about the next 6 years, the next generation, the structures you build. Because here is the bigger picture. After the Sahel military takeovers in 2023-2024, France got pushed out, US bases in Niger shut down, Wagner moved into Mali and Burkina Faso, and West Africa became a chessboard where every move by one power triggers a counter move. Nigeria, as the region's largest economy and most populous nation, is the prize. Whoever has Nigeria's trust on security has influence over a $500 billion economy and 200 million people. So when Tinubu said yes to US strikes, he wasn't just saying yes to hitting ISIS camps. He was saying yes to a deeper security architecture, to intelligence sharing, to a partnership that will shape policy for years. So the question is, did he get what Nigeria needs? Or what America wanted? Now let's connect the dots. November 7th, Gulfstream 5 at MacDill Air Force Base, Florida. November 20th, Nigerian NSA meets US Defense Secretary in Washington. November 24th, Gulfstream deploys to Ghana, starts daily flights over Nigeria. December 25th, Tomahawk missiles hit Sokoto. That's a 48-day cycle from positioning the assets to executing strikes. In military planning terms, that's fast, and that suggests the intelligence was actionable, the targets were verified, and the coordination was tight. But here is what's interesting. US officials haven't released imagery of the strike damage. They haven't shown before and after satellite photos. They haven't named specific ISIS commanders unalived. Why? 2 possibilities. 1, the intelligence is so sensitive. Revealing it would compromise sources and methods. Maybe they had informants on the ground. Maybe they intercepted communications. Showing proof will burn those capabilities. 2, the targets were less clear-cut than ISIS camps, and detailed imagery would raise questions they don't want to answer. Now, I'm not saying it's conspiracy. I'm saying modern warfare runs on information control. And what you don't show can matter as much as what you do. Remember what I said earlier about fighters fleeing to Niger? According to local reports after the airstrikes, Lakurawa elements scattered. Some crossed the border, some melted back into villages. The Nigerian military tried to reach the strike zones but couldn't because of fires and rough terrain. Now, think of it like this. Imagine you are trying to get rid of rats in your compound. You could set off fireworks to scare them away, and they will run. But unless you seal the holes and cut off their food supply, they will just come back when things get quiet. Airstrikes without ground control, without governance, without development, they are fireworks. And there is an economic dimension nobody's talking about. Northeastern Nigeria has gold deposits. Sokoto State alone has mineral resources worth billions of dollars. But insecurity in the region has blocked investment for years. If you are the US, helping secure the Northwest isn't just about counterterrorism. It's about opening trade routes, protecting mining opportunities, stabilizing a region that connects Nigeria to the Sahel. Follow the incentive. They tell part of the story. So when Foreign Minister Tuga called this a new phase of an old conflict, he wasn't exaggerating. We are watching Nigeria decide whether it wants to be the West's security anchor in a post-coup Sahel, or whether it wants to chart a more independent path. Now, here's what I'm watching for the next 60 days. You see, we talked about this incident that happened on Christmas Day, and a bomb struck within hours. So when we talk about things like this, when we analyze geopolitical things like this, we really mean what we're doing. We look at things that are on the ground and we see a pattern, and patterns never lie. So here is what I'm watching for the next 60 days. 1. Does Nigeria announce more joint operations? Or was this a one-time response to Trump's pressure? If you see another round of strikes in Borno or Yobe, that tells us this is now standard operating procedure. If that stays quiet, it was more about sending a political message than operational strategy. 2. Do they displace fighters, regroup, or do they dissolve? If attacks spike in Zamfara or Kebbi in the next few weeks, it means the strikes scattered but didn't eliminate the threat. If violence drops, it means the pressure worked. 3. How does Russia respond? If Nigeria fully embraces US military partnership, that weakens Russia's Sahel foothold. Moscow might try to offer counter deals, equipment, training to states that feel left out. Geopolitics doesn't like vacuums. Every move creates a counter move. So what did we learn from Christmas Day 2025? We learned that surveillance in the sky really does becomes strikes on the ground. That Gulf Stream wasn't just watching, it was building the map for tomahawks. We learned that Nigeria is willing to accept foreign military action on its soil when domestic capacity can't match the threat. But that acceptance comes with political cost and sovereignty questions. We learned that how you frame the enemy matters. Call them bandits, you get police response. Call them ISIS, you get cruise missiles. The label shapes the strategy. And we learned that the line between partnership and dependency is thinner than politicians like to admit. But here is what we still don't know. We still don't know how many people were unalived in those airstrikes. AFRICOM says multiple ISIS terrorists. Locals say they didn't see casualties. We don't have independent verification. We don't know whether the right targets were hit. Was it ISIS, Lakurawa, bandits with loose jihadist ties, or people who just happens to be in the wrong place? And we don't know where all this leads. Is this a new normal or an exception? What I do know is this: the video we made 2 days ago, analyzing those surveillance flights, we weren't speculating. We were decoding a system that was already in motion. We just didn't know how fast it would move from intelligence. So here is what I want from you. Do you think Nigeria made the right move calling for US strikes? Or should Tinubu have found another way? Do you believe the targets were ISIS? Or is that label being used too loosely? And most important, what should Nigeria do next? Keep the partnership, build domestic capacity faster, or push back on foreign military action? Drop your analysis in the comments, because the people watching this channel aren't just looking for hot takes, they are looking for strategic thinking. If this breakdown helped you understand what happened on Christmas Day, share it with someone who is still confused. Send it to that group chat where people are arguing about sovereignty without understanding the intelligence pipeline. Now is the time, because we are going to keep tracking this. We are going to watch whether more strikes happen, whether violence drops or shifts, whether Nigeria's gamble pays off or backfires. 2 days ago, we analyzed surveillance flights and asked the question, what would happen if surveillance turned into strikes? Christmas Day gave us the answer. Now, the question is, what happens next? I will see you when we find out. My name is Asangwe.
A US strike inside. You just watched that clip, the flash in the night, the shockwave, the panic online, and then the headline hits: a US strike inside Nigeria on Christmas Day.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un.
I'll be breaking out to the left.
Now let's slow it down, because this is bigger than a counterterrorism headline. It's about precedent, about sovereignty, and about the emotional weight of timing Christmas Day in a country where the religious temperature is already easy to weaponize, and where every foreign intervention comes with a story attached, usually written somewhere else, and then sold back to Nigerians as help. Here's what major outlets are reporting as of December 25 to 26, 2025.
President Donald Trump said he launched, quote, powerful and deadly strikes against Islamic State forces in the West African nation. The Department of Defense released this video of missile launches. The president did not give any details of the strike or reveal what was damaged.
They carried out these strikes. However, the U.S. Africa Command reports the strike killed multiple terrorists. You may remember last month, the president said he ordered the Pentagon to start planning for potential military action in Nigeria. And this came after the president claimed ISIS militants killed Christians.
There's also been a lot of Muslims killed by both of those terrorist organizations as well in Nigeria. President Trump specifically naming Christians, saying that is the reason that the U.S. struck on Christmas Day, and that strikes will continue, the president says, if Christians continue to be targeted. Again, that coming just from President Trump's Truth Social. We're going to continue to try to learn more, but we just got that into our newsroom.
But Nigeria's own official framing is not the same story. Nigeria's foreign ministry says the operation happened without an existing security cooperation framework, that it was conducted with Nigeria's request and full coordination, and that at no time was Nigeria's sovereignty compromised. And crucially, Abuja rejects the sectarian framing, warning that extremist violence in Nigeria hits communities across religious and ethnic lines. Like and share to help us beat YouTube censorship. Subscribe if you haven't already.
The United States strike against Target in Sokoto State was largely symbolic to the United States because, you know, the US president is struggling very hard to recover his Christian evangelical voters back home because they manipulated the decision of the evangelical voters to support Netanyahu's genocide against people in Gaza. And eventually, the evangelicals became so angry that they were not known, that they were deceived into supporting an open genocide against innocent children. And that is why they are technically somehow withdrawing silently their support for the MAGA movement. So the only way the MAGA movement can show its support for the Christian crusade globally is to target places where they can now name a Christian operations. And that is why they did that on the Christmas day. You know what happened during the Banga, right? On the 25th, on the night of the 25th day of Christmas, when you now be throwing out knockout and bangers all over the street. So that is exactly what the US president did for his evangelical supporters at home in the US. So it's largely for the benefit of his people at home than on the benefit of Nigerians.
Of Israel has been very terrible to Christians in Palestine. Bethlehem is the birthplace of Jesus Christ. They are not having a Merry Christmas there. They're sleeping in tents in the cold. It's winter. He has continuously bombed churches in Syria, in Gaza in the last few years. And he's just using Nigeria as an excuse to, appeal to a political base, using Christians in Nigeria. He doesn't care about Christians, even in the Holy Land. And this is really, really terrible. If Nigeria has fixed its security issues, you saw that Donald Trump tweet. There are many layers to it. Just 2 days ago, a suicide bomber carried out an attack and killed more than 4 people in a mosque in Maiduguri. He didn't mention that. You just think it's binary. It's black and white. That, these bombs are going to destroy people that are killing Christians and all of that. At the end of the day, I put the blame at the doorstep of the Nigerian government for not dealing decisively with insecurity. Yeah. Since 2007, this year alone, they've dropped over 37 bombs in Somalia. Has it taken care of Al-Shabaab? Nope. Is there peace in Somalia? What does it do? It gives profits to Raytheon, to BAE Systems, to Northrop Grumman, and all the weapons manufacturers. You have an excuse. It's become a permanent thing. Look at Syria. Look at Iraq.
Everybody.
So right away, you can see the fault line. The US political messaging is leaning hard into protecting Christians. Nigeria is saying, don't reduce our security crisis into a simplistic religious billboard. And ordinary Nigerians are split between two instincts that are both real. Number one, please stop the terrorists. And number two, don't turn Nigeria into a playground where foreign powers demonstrate force for their own domestic audience. And about that date, Christmas Day is not just another day on the calendar here. It's family, it's church, it's travel, it's crowded roads. It's a nationwide emotional moment. And when an explosion story lands on that day, the narrative multiplies. Take Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, a cleric whose statements carry real influence and controversy. He condemned the US strikes in harsh terms, calling it a neo-crusade style intervention. Let's talk about media framing, because it matters more than people admit. In several Western headlines and political clips, you'll hear Trump strikes ISIS to protect Christians or US punishes terrorist scum. It's punchy, it's moralistic, and it's designed to signal strength. A concerned African sent a tough message to the media.
So apparently, this is actually the biggest Christmas present for the Christians, right? So Donald Trump said he came into Nigeria. Up till now, we never see evidence. But why I believe it is because nobody has come to debunk anything. The Nigerian government have not debunked it. Nobody has said anything. So you can't do it. Now, how did it enter? Nobody know. And nobody cares. So long say the help won't stop terrorism. Nobody cares. But again, this is crazy. This is to show you how our country know they secure, because Donald Trump.
Now, on X, you can see the sovereignty argument in real time. Omoyele Sowore, a well-known activist and former presidential candidate, publicly criticized the idea of US strikes on Nigerian soil, calling it a violation of national sovereignty and a symptom of leadership failure. That's his framing. It's a raw nerve. Nigerians may want security help, but Nigerians also don't want to be treated like a territory that gets handled from abroad. And now Nigeria's leverage is bigger than people think, and Abuja doesn't have to shout to exercise it. One lever is permissions and protocols, overflight, access, coordination rules, what kind of foreign support is allowed, and under what visibility. Another lever is intelligence access, because partnerships aren't charity, they are transactions. And Nigeria can define the terms of what it shares and how it is used. A third lever is regional diplomacy, ECOWAS and AU signaling matters, because once you normalize unilateral or politically packaged strikes, it ripples across the Sahel and West Africa. And Nigeria has every reason to push for a rules-based regional approach rather than holiday surprise interventions. So here's my sober sovereignty first takeaway. Nigerians can want terrorists crushed and still demand dignity. Nigerians can appreciate operational support and still refuse to be branded as a stage for someone else's domestic politics. And Nigerians can insist on verification, because if civilian harm is alleged, it must be investigated transparently, not buried under holiday slogans or partisan cheers. And now, if this precedent stands without clear Nigerian defined rules, you risk a future where every foreign power with a drone, a missile, or a narrative decides Nigeria is available for demonstration. And once that door is open, it never closes cleanly. It also changes how armed groups recruit, because they will sell this as foreign crusaders on Nigerian soil. And that is exactly the kind of recruitment fuel a smart counter-terror strategy tries to deny. Two questions for you in the comments. One, do you believe this operation, as reported, strengthens Nigeria's security or weakens Nigeria's sovereignty by setting a dangerous precedent? And two, do you trust the protect Christians framing, or do you think it risks inflaming exactly the tensions Nigeria is trying to manage? If you want updates as this develops, hit like, subscribe, and drop your take below. We're tracking the next statements out of Abuja and Washington as they break. And thank you for watching. Until I see you in the next one. God bless you.
Now, Tanzania's economy is growing rapidly, projected to expand by 6% this year, driven by significant infrastructure investments.
Russia just made a move in Tanzania that has Western powers absolutely panicking, and what they're offering could completely flip East Africa's entire power structure. Right now, Tanzania is facing a crisis that could destroy everything they've built. The EU just froze $156 million in aid. The US pulled another $100 million and slapped travel warnings on the country. Western banks are shutting the money taps. And Tanzania's debt is climbing towards 65% of GDP, with no relief in sight. President Samia publicly admitted their global image is battered, and securing funding from international institutions just became nearly impossible. This is economic warfare. And while the West lectures Tanzania about democracy and threatens more sanctions, Russia quietly walked in with something nobody expected: a full economic lifeline that doesn't come with any political strings attached. So let me show you exactly what Russia's offering, why the West is terrified, and how this one deal could reshape the entire balance of power in Africa. Here's what most people don't understand about Tanzania's situation. In October 2025, Tanzania held elections. The ruling party CCM won decisively. Opposition parties cried foul. Western election observers called it fundamentally flawed. And within weeks, the punishments started rolling in. The EU froze aid. US senators threatened sanctions. The African Union condemned the process. And suddenly, Tanzania found itself economically isolated from the West. Now, Tanzania's economy was already walking a tightrope. Public debt hit 49.6% of GDP before the crisis and climbing fast towards 65%. The country needs about 700,000 tons of fertilizer annually just to keep agriculture running. They import over 90% of it. Their infrastructure desperately needs investment. Roads, ports, power grids, gas processing facilities. And all of this requires massive capital that was supposed to come from Western aid and loans. But when the West pulls funding, everything stops. Tanzania's 2025 budget jumped 15% to $21.88 billion.
These funds have been directed towards development projects with significant national benefits, including road infrastructure, a modern railway, airports, and electricity generation projects.
Western aid historically covered about 23% of government revenue. That's billions of dollars suddenly gone. And the timing couldn't be worse because Tanzania is trying to achieve Vision 2050, a plan to become a trillion-dollar economy through infrastructure and industrialization. Without external financing, that vision dies. So what does Tanzania do? They turn east. And Russia was waiting with open arms. On October 28, 2024, something major happened that barely made Western news. Russia's Minister of Economic Development, Maxim Reshetnikov, flew to Dar es Salaam with a full delegation. They met with Tanzania's Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa. And the very next day, October 29th, Tanzania and Russia held their first ever joint intergovernmental commission on Bonman, trade and economic cooperation at the Julius Nyerere International Convention Center. This wasn't just a diplomatic photo op. This was Russia and Tanzania sitting down to hammer out specific deals across multiple sectors: agriculture, energy, mining, infrastructure, tourism, everything Tanzania needs right now. And here's what makes this meeting absolutely critical: Russia came with real offers, not conditions, not lectures about governance, just business. Let's break down what Russia is actually offering. First, fertilizer. Tanzania needs 700,000 tons annually and imports over 90% from foreign suppliers. Russia is already supplying Tanzanian markets and they're ready to massively increase volumes. Russian Minister Reshetnikov stated clearly that Russian fertilizer producers are prepared to expand shipments significantly. And they're not just selling fertilizer, they're offering to help Tanzania with rational use of mineral fertilizers and training in advanced agronomic practices. This is huge. Agriculture employs about 65% of Tanzania's workforce. If farming productivity drops because of fertilizer shortages, the entire economy collapses. Millions go hungry. Social unrest explodes. Russia is essentially offering to keep Tanzania's agricultural sector alive while the West walks away. Second, energy. Tanzania has massive untapped natural gas reserves. We're talking enormous deposits off the coast and onshore. But they lack the technology and capital to develop them. Russia offered to increase exports of liquefied natural gas and natural gas to Tanzania. But more importantly, Russian companies are willing to work on extracting fossil fuels and implementing major pipeline projects. They're offering to help build the infrastructure Tanzania needs to become energy independent. Right now, despite having huge gas reserves, Tanzania only has 80,000 registered industries and only 57 actually use natural gas for operations. Only 5,000 vehicles run on compressed natural gas. Only 1,500 households are connected to piped cooking gas. Russia wants to change that. They're bringing the expertise and investment to develop Tanzania's gas sector at scale. Third, infrastructure and trade hubs. Russia sees Tanzania's strategic location on the Indian Ocean as a gateway to all of East Africa. Reshetnikov explicitly said Tanzania can serve as the sole window through which Russian products could enter the Eastern African market. Russia is interested in developing Tanzania's ports. They're looking at the deep water port project in Bagamoyo near Dar es Salaam. They're exploring upgrades to existing ports in Tanga, Imetwara, and Dar es Salaam itself, all recently modernized and capable of handling large vessels. If Russia develops these ports, they establish a permanent trade presence in East Africa. They bypass Western-controlled trade routes. They create alternative supply chains that don't touch Europe or rely on Western financial systems. This is geopolitical chess at the highest level. Fourth, direct flights and tourism. Russia announced plans to establish direct flights from Moscow to Zanzibar. This might sound small, but it's not. Tourism is one of Tanzania's biggest industries. Western tourists are pulling back because of travel advisories. Russian tourists could fill that gap. Plus, direct flights mean more business travel, more investment delegations, deeper people-to-people connections. It's soft power infrastructure. Fifth, military cooperation. Here's where it gets really interesting. Russia has signed military cooperation agreements with 33 African states as of November 2024. Tanzania is one of them. Russia signed a military cooperation agreement with Tanzania back in 2016, and they've been expanding it ever since. This includes training Tanzanian servicemen at Russian military academies, supplying defense equipment, and security cooperation. Why does this matter? Because military ties create long-term strategic relationships that are hard to break. Tanzania gets modern weapons and training without Western conditions about human rights or democracy. Russia gets a friendly military partner on the Indian Ocean with strategic ports. It's a win-win that completely bypasses Western influence. Now let's talk about the financial architecture Russia is building. In May 2025, the second meeting of the Russia-Tanzania Commission happened in St. Petersburg. By then, bilateral trade had already grown 20% since the start of 2025. Russian exports to Tanzania jumped 25%, mainly wheat, meslin, and fertilizers. Tanzania exports coffee, tea, tobacco, and fruit to Russia. And here's the key detail: Russia plans to increase the share of settlements with African countries in local currencies to 90% by 2030. Think about what that means. No dollars, no euros, just rubles and Tanzanian shillings. This completely cuts out Western banks, cuts out SWIFT, cuts out any Western ability to monitor, control, or sanction these transactions. If Russia and Tanzania trade in local currencies, the West has zero leverage. They can't freeze accounts, can't block payments, can't do anything except watch their influence evaporate. And Tanzania isn't alone in this. Russia opened trade missions in Senegal and Tanzania. They're building a regional crisis management center in Burundi. They're cooperating with Rwanda on nuclear energy. They're spreading across East Africa systematically, offering each country the same deal: trade, development, and security without Western political interference. But here's where this gets even more strategic. Tanzania isn't just accepting Russian help, they're actively pivoting away from the West. In August 2023, President Samia attended the BRICS summit in South Africa. She gave a speech calling for a fair global economic order and criticized the North-South divide. She said BRICS offers a more equitable, balanced, and fair mechanism to deal with an international economic order. That's diplomatic language for, we're done with Western dominance. Tanzania's foreign minister has been actively building ties with Russia. They met on the sidelines of the second ministerial conference of the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum in Cairo in December 2025. They discussed stepping up trade and economic cooperation. They reaffirmed readiness to coordinate actions at the UN and other international platforms. Translation? Tanzania and Russia are now voting together at the UN. They're coordinating foreign policy. This is alliance building in real time. Now let's talk about why the West is absolutely terrified of this. First, Tanzania is strategically located. It's on the Indian Ocean coast. It's a member of the East African Community. It has access to landlocked countries like Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, even the DRC. If Russia secures Tanzania as a reliable partner, they have a foothold in one of Africa's most important regions. They can project power across East Africa. They can challenge Western influence in Kenya, Uganda, everywhere. Second, Tanzania has resources: natural gas, gold, diamonds, agricultural potential, tourism. If Russia locks up access to these resources through favorable trade deals, that's resources the West can't access or control. In a world moving toward resource nationalism, losing Tanzania means losing access to critical supplies. Third, this sets a precedent. If Tanzania successfully pivots to Russia and maintains economic growth without Western aid, other African countries will take notes. Mali did it. Niger did it. Burkina Faso did it. Now Tanzania. If this trend continues, the entire Western aid and development model collapses. Countries realize they don't need Western lectures. They just need partners willing to do business without conditions. Fourth, the military angle. Russia is systematically building military relationships across Africa, training African officers, supplying weapons, offering security cooperation. If enough African countries align militarily with Russia, that changes the entire continental security architecture. Western military bases become less relevant. French and American influence wanes. And suddenly, African countries have options when disputes arise. And here's the really clever part of Russia's strategy. They're not asking Tanzania to choose. They're not demanding Tanzania cut ties with China or the West. They're just offering to be an additional partner, a backup option, a plan B. But that's exactly how influence works. Once Tanzania knows they have alternatives, Western leverage disappears. The West can't threaten aid cuts because Russia will step in. Can't threaten sanctions because local currency trade bypasses them. Can't threaten military isolation because Russia provides equipment and training. Now, let's be realistic about Russia's capabilities. Russia's economy is under massive sanctions because of Ukraine. Their GDP is smaller than Italy's. They're not as rich as China. They can't match Western aid dollar for dollar. But here's what Russia has that the West doesn't: willingness to ignore governance issues. Russia doesn't care if Tanzania's elections were fair, doesn't care about opposition arrests, doesn't care about press freedom. They care about trade, resources, and geopolitical positioning. For a country like Tanzania facing Western pressure, that's incredibly attractive. Plus, Russia has specific expertise Tanzania needs: energy development, agricultural technology, military equipment. These are areas where Russia is genuinely world-class. They're not just throwing money around, they're offering real technical cooperation that produces tangible results. And Russia is patient. They're not demanding immediate returns. They're building relationships that will pay off over decades. They're playing the long game while the West reacts emotionally to each election cycle. That patience gives Russia an edge in countries tired of Western short-term thinking. But there are risks for Tanzania in this strategy. First, overdependence on Russia creates new vulnerabilities. If Russia's economy tanks further, their ability to deliver on promises shrinks. Second, Western sanctions could extend to countries doing business with Russia. Tanzania could find itself caught between competing pressure campaigns. Third, Russia's track record in Africa is mixed. Projects get announced. Some get built. Others fade away. Tanzania needs to manage expectations carefully. However, for Tanzania right now, these risks are worth taking because the alternative is economic collapse. Without external financing, Tanzania can't fund infrastructure, can't import fertilizers, can't develop gas fields, can't achieve Vision 2050. The West abandoned them over election disputes. China is focused on bigger markets. Russia showed up with offers when nobody else would. That timing matters enormously. And here's what makes this moment so significant. Tanzania isn't a small country. It has 65 million people. It's East Africa's second largest economy after Kenya. It's a founding member of the East African Community. It has coastline, resources, and regional influence. If Russia successfully establishes Tanzania as a key partner, they gain a platform to expand influence across the entire region. Kenya is watching. Uganda is watching. Rwanda is watching. If Tanzania thrives with Russian support despite Western sanctions, those countries will ask why they should remain dependent on Western aid with all its conditions. The demonstration effect could be enormous. So what happens next? Russia and Tanzania have scheduled regular commission meetings. The next one is set for 2026. Russian companies are already on the ground exploring investments in fertilizer production, gas development, and infrastructure. Direct flights are being planned. Military cooperation is expanding. Trade in local currencies is increasing. All of this momentum builds on itself. Meanwhile, Western pressure continues. The EU hasn't restored the frozen aid. the US maintains its critical stance. Western media portrays Tanzania as sliding into authoritarianism, but these narratives don't change Tanzania's economic reality. They need partners who will actually invest. Russia is investing. The West is lecturing. The choice is obvious, and this pattern is repeating across Africa. Countries facing Western pressure are finding alternative partners: Russia, China, Gulf states, Turkey, all offering development without governance conditions. The West's monopoly on development financing is breaking down. And once that monopoly is gone, so is the leverage that came with it. Here's my take on where this goes. Tanzania and Russia will deepen cooperation significantly over the next few years. We'll see Russian investment in gas projects, fertilizer plants, and port infrastructure. We'll see increased military cooperation and coordination at international forums. Tanzania will use Russian support to offset Western aid cuts and maintain economic growth despite sanctions pressure. Other East African countries will watch closely. Some will follow Tanzania's lead and diversify away from Western dependence. Others will try to balance between East and West. But the era of unquestioned Western dominance in the region is over. Russia's move in Tanzania proved that alternatives exist and can work. The West will try to counter this with new aid packages and diplomatic engagement, but they'll face a credibility problem. They already pulled support once over political disputes. Why should Tanzania trust them not to do it again? Once you weaponize aid, it stops being aid and becomes leverage. And countries don't like being leveraged. So yeah, Russia's secret move to save Tanzania shocked the West, because it exposed how fragile Western influence actually is. One election dispute, one aid freeze, and decades of relationship building evaporate while Russia steps in with real support and no conditions. That's the new reality in Africa. And the West better figure out how to compete, because lectures about democracy aren't winning anymore. If you found this valuable, smash that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos on the geopolitical
.com, and I have this.
Tearing down idols and we cutting down poles. We calling back Israel to the hell we know. Throwing out crystals, we don't need these stones, and we ain't no gods. That's a job for y'all. I'll praise to the Most High. I'll praise to the Most High, Yahuwah. I'll praise to the Most High. I'll praise to the Yah Israel. Tearing down idols, we cutting down poles. We calling back Israel to the hell we know. We throwing out crystals, we don't need these stones. We ain't no gods, that's a job for y'all. Yeah. Oh, I'll praise. Who we say? I'll praise. Hey, I'll praise. Sing it again, I'll praise. Let's lift up a praise to Yah, yeah. I'll praise. We won't go the way of the pagan. We don't need no potions of Satan. We won't let your word be forsaken. Even if we're hated, we won't go the way of Satan. We don't need no potions of Satan. We won't let your word No, 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 no. Even if we won't go the way. We don't need no poses on stage. We won't let your word be forsaken. Even if we're tearing down idols and we cutting down poles. We calling back Israel to the hell we know. We throwing out crystals. We don't need these stones. And we ain't no gods. That's a job for y'all. Everybody help me say all praise. All praise. All praise to the Most. I can't hear you say. All praise to the Most. Oh, all praise. All praise. Hey, hey, all praise. All praise to the God of Israel.
We have a major breaking news from Nigeria. That same topic we've been talking about in the last month that we wished and hope never happened had happened. Donald Trump just announced in the last couple of hours that strikes had been launched on the northern Nigeria, the northwestern part of the north. He claimed these were strikes on ISIS terrorist camps that had been killing Nigerian Christians. He gave that authorization for the strike to be launched on the northwest Nigeria on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, he called it a decisive and a very small operation, but further strikes and further attacks would follow if these attacks on Nigerian Christians in the north continues. Ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this every single time, and I make a lot of videos about this. It had started, and it's never going to stop. I don't know the level of damage or the kind of strike that was launched by the United States on the northern part of Nigeria, but unfortunately, I was on the live stream when those details came through. I didn't check on time. I'll take my time now to have a look, see what happened, and I will obviously, most definitely come back here and give you guys a good update. But right now, that is all I can tell you. Strikes have been launched by the United States on Nigeria, the northwestern part of the northern Nigeria. It has begun. Let's wait and see what we find out. And why on the Christmas Day? That is the question. That is what I don't seem to understand. But let's wait and see. You know, I don't want to say too much right now because I don't know. There might be a reason why those strikes were called. I don't know what they found out. Maybe perhaps these so-called ISIS and Boko Haram or these terrorist groups were planning to launch attacks on Christians again. Maybe, I don't know. So let's just keep our finger crossed and see what we get. I'll come back here and update you guys.
Syria is the latest country US President Donald Trump has threatened to bomb.
It will be fast, vicious, and sweet.
Military action to protect the country's Christians.
If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. We're going to do things to Nigeria that Nigeria is not going to be happy about and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns are blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible, horrible atrocities.
So a pretty direct warning there. The Trump administration's also listed Nigeria as a country of particular concern, which is basically a designation for countries that are seriously violating religious freedoms. And Trump's not alone in his assertions.
There is no country on earth where Christians are more persecuted than Nigeria. Since 2009, more than 50,000 Christians have been murdered by Boko Haram and radical Islamic extremists. More than 20,000 churches and schools have been burned to the ground.
There's no doubt Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. They're openly targeted by groups like Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. But have 50,000 Christians been murdered in the last 16 years? While there absolutely have been high-profile violent attacks on Christians, it's unlikely 50,000 of them have been murdered because of their religion.
Peace and blessings, Shabbat shalom and shalom. Fair use, of course, fair use. Hey, family, hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully you're ready for your Shabbat, to have a great Shabbat. But family, let me tell you, there is a lot of stuff going on, especially in Nigeria. I'm sure you all have heard the, big shout out to Peace and Blessings, my cousin Majors. And definitely, hey, cuz, if you could please just send me your the name of your book again. Just want to let family know about your book. I totally forgot about that earlier, Bishop. But yeah, if you could please just send it over, or just drop it in the chat, and I'll talk about it. But hey, peace and blessings, and big shalom to Ema Cassandra. Hopefully you're doing well, and everyone else that's in the chat as well. But hey, family, we actually have it's a double. You're going to get double for your viewing pleasure today. Just trying to get my words straight. And yes, we're going to talk about Africa. Yes, we're going to talk about this strike, which is, when you look at this strike as far as where it occurred, and that's another thing, it bypassed everything that's on the South Africa. It bypassed everything that's, not South Africa, but South Nigeria, bypassed everything that's in East Nigeria, and made a beeline straight from Accra. That's the reports that the jets that actually dropped these bombs took off from Accra, and then went all the way up to the northwest corner of Nigeria and dropped some bombs there. And it's interesting because the reason for this attack, or the supposed reason, is they say that it's because of the unaliving of the Christians over in that area. But the thing is, what the locals are saying is that, well, hey, where you drop the bombs, USA, USA government, there aren't a lot of Christians in that area, if any, in the first place. So who are you bombing? So that was like, it's an eyebrow raiser, one. And then the other thing is, the justification that they're talking about, the unaliving of these Christians in great numbers, was reported by this mysterious organization. And, folks are kind of theorizing or speculating that this organization that threw out these numbers that the U.S. government is using to justify the bombings, they're saying that report is bogus, and that comes directly from the Nigerian government himself. All right, so you might be saying, all right, Brother Benaiah, why are you talking about this in the first place? Well, this all ties back to you. I'm telling you, family, like all these different wars and rumors of wars, and these places where you see all this conflict, whether it be in Sudan, whether it be in Yemen, here they are, they're bombing this place called Sinna, which is the place where the Limba, which is, your DNA, if we trace your DNA, the Limba say they come from Sinna. So they're over there bombing Sinna. Then when this altercation with Iran kicks off, they're talking about, well, all right, so if Iran feels threatened, they're going to close down the Strait of Hormuz. Guess what? There are two places where so-called people of color congregate in great numbers. And yes, the one of the two places is the Strait of Hormuz. Like I said, family, it always go back to where you are. And, there's dots being connected all over the place. But here's the thing, family. So when we talk about Nigeria and we talk about the U.S. just randomly bombing these places in northwest Nigeria, you have to know that this ties back to Israel. And to this fact, I'm going to pull this up here. I want to pull up my maps. So bear with me just for a second. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you can see this. Let's do this. I'm going to share. And let's see, because of their religion. All right. Bear with me just for a second, family. So I'm going to pull this out. Remove that from stage, add the stage. Okay, here we go. All right, so what you are looking at a map of Nigeria. And I pulled up this location called Sokoto. And this is supposedly where the attack that the U.S. attacked in Nigeria. So they took off from down here in Accra. And Accra is in your Bible. And then they went from Accra. Well, let me just clarify. It is the name of a person in your Bible. And the thing about us our brothers and sisters, when they came out of Israel, they took their names with them. So it's kind of easy to track or trace wherever they spent some time, because you'll see those names. They named the places where they stayed, after their ancestors. So that's where Accra comes from, supposedly. But in any case, the jets that the U.S. used to bomb Nigeria, they left from Accra, and then went all the way up here. They bypassed Lagos, they bypassed all these other places, and they went all the way up here to this one little spot, and where hardly any Christians were, and they bombed it. All right, and so far, because normally you could find some stuff on TikTok and X as far as like videos and stuff, I was only able to find a handful of videos, and it wasn't a whole lot of damage. It was like these tribes that were off in the bush, living in straw houses, that they bombed. What do they have to do with anything? I see somebody says right on the border of Mali. Somebody's cooking already. Somebody's cooking already. But let's just read a little bit about this. I want to show you a few things, family. So one thing is, I want to show you that the people that are behind all this are one and the same people. Either this stuff is going to track or trace back to Germany, or it's going to trace or track back to Ashkenazi, in my opinion. That is my opinion. And to that end, this attack was carried out by AFRICOM. So AFRICOM is the entity that controls the military, the European military, over in this area. Well, where's AFRICOM from? Well, let's look at it. AFRICOM is from, let me see, did I pull this up? You can see AFRICOM, hopefully you can see it here, headquarters in Stuttgart, Germany. So AFRICOM is the headquarters of AFRICOM, where they were directing these attacks from, came from Germany. Like I said before, when you look at some of these attacks, family, it's either going to come from Germany or it's going to come from the 1948ers, in my opinion. All right. And then, things get a little, I'm not the only one that thinks that these attacks are suspicious. Of course, you can go to Al Jazeera, which you see on the screen, and this is the name of the article. Trump says the U.S. launched strikes against ISIL in the northwest Nigeria. And it says the United States says that it has carried out an airstrike against ISIS fighters in northwest Nigeria that residents say caused buildings to shake and the sky to glow red. And of course, in the Trump's voice, he says, tonight at my direction, as commander-in-chief, the United States launched the powerful and deadly strikes against ISIS terrorist scum in the northwest Nigeria, President Donald Trump said in a post on his Truth Social platform on Thursday evening. And then it goes and it says, Trump, who has previously threatened greater U.S. intervention in Nigeria over dubious claims that a genocide of Christians is taking place there in ISIS fighters have been viciously killing and targeting Christians at levels unseen in centuries. And it says, I have previously warned these terrorists that if they do not stop the slaughtering of Christians, they would be hell to pay. And tonight there was. And this is, of course, Trump confirming that the U.S. launched an attack against Nigeria, the northwest part of Nigeria. And it goes on to say the U.S. Military African Command, or AFRICOM, which is responsible for operations in Africa, said in an X post that the airstrike was carried out at the request of the Nigerian authorities. But oddly enough, the Nigerian authorities didn't have anything to say shortly after the attack, until after the attack occurred, and Trump mentioned that the attack occurred. But anyway, it says, and had killed multiple ISIS terrorists. Residents of Jabo have said that the airstrikes, or that the strikes, cause alarm, and that their village has never experienced an attack by ISIL. And it goes on and says, as it approached our area, the heat became intense. Abubakar Sani, who lives just a few houses from the scene of the explosion, told the news service Associated Press, our rooms began to shake and then the fire broke out. He said, Nigerian government should take appropriate measures to protect us as citizens. We have never experienced anything like this before. All right. Well, you get the idea. So bombs dropped in this suspicious place over in northwest Nigeria. And like I said, you might be thinking, what in the world does this have to do with me? What in the world does this have to do with Israel? Well, one of the things we want to show you, and to answer this question, family, we are going to go to a couple of websites. One is what you can see on the screen. This is called raremaps.com. This is raremaps.com. And let's see if we can see where I'm looking at. What we're looking at is West Africa. So you go to raremaps.com, you click on Africa, then you go down to West Africa. They have, as you can see on the screen, 118 maps of West Africa. Now, the only thing that I did, so once I got to this map, I sorted the maps by date. So I put the oldest map at the top and the newest map at the bottom. So all we're going to do is that we're going to scroll. You're going to take a look at these maps at the top, and we're going to scroll down to the bottom. All right. So now the backdrop of this, family, you have to keep in mind, the whole thing about Spain and Portugal. So we know with Spain and Portugal, if you're familiar with this channel and the content, you know that there were a lot of Israelites over in Spain and Portugal, and starting in 1942, early 1500s, they were expelled, and it occurred over time via the Inquisition, from the 1500s all the way up through the 1700s and even 1800s. They kept fleeing out of that place, fleeing from persecution. And one of the places, or one of the major places that they fled to, was Africa. So when they came into Africa, so post 1942, I said 1942, 1492, forgive me, 1492, I didn't mean 1942, I mean 1492. So 1492, when the Israelites, the tribe of Judah, came into Africa in great numbers, and that's one thing that these references say over and over. They came into Africa in great numbers. A couple of things changed. So, and we can actually see the change reflected in the map, because I know so far when it comes to some of these old maps, we've showed you old maps that have the Kingdom of Judah on those old maps. But in those old maps, the Kingdom of Judah typically shows up right around in those maps in the 1700s, right? So whenever you see those, like even in my book, Black History Case Files, Buried Heritage, I have some pictures of the Kingdom of Judah, of the map of the Kingdom of Judah. But the pictures of those maps come from the 1700s. So the question is, what happened before the 1700s, right? So here we are, and to answer this question and some others, we're going to go through these maps. All right, so here we are. We're looking at a map which is 1513. Hopefully you can see it on the screen, 1513. So we're just going to click on it, and I'm going to expand it so you can see it. All right, so here's the West Africa, as you can see, and you'll see things like Ethiopia, Libya, interior, right? And these are just the places where, the Europeans or, these Arab explorers knew about. And of course, I saw somebody put the Mali Empire in there, but, we don't necessarily have in these old maps the Mali Empire identified. And Mali Empire actually goes like from the far west over here all the way over to here. I think I have a map of the Songhai. Yeah, I got a map of the Songhai Empire too, which is this guy right here. Songhai Empire is a little bit more condensed than Mali, but still, you can see it's pretty wide, right? It kind of goes all the way over, almost all the way over to the coast, right, and all the way into the interior. So when we look at the map, there's this, we'll say there's this territory or this people that's in the interior of this map that they don't at the time of this map being created, they don't really know who it is, right? They put this generic label in this area that said there's somebody here, Regim Organg, right? And also during that time, there was theories as to who these people were. Some actually said that they were associated with the Yoruba. Some say that they were the progenitors of the Yoruba. Some say that they were the progenitors of the folks that were in Benin. All kinds of different theories out there. Nothing concrete, but they had their theories. So, but that's that map. So we just got this area over here. Don't really know who those people are. 1500s. Remember, the Israelites were kicked out of Spain and Portugal beginning in 1492 in great numbers. Lot came over into Africa. And this is, like I said, when we start to look at these maps, we start to see some of these names change. And we're at 1535, and we see the same region called Regim Organvin, and this is Latin, so I'm not a Latin guy, so forgive me if I don't pronounce it right. But you get the picture, family, right? You get the idea. All right, so that's 1535. So we're going to skip ahead in time. And also, one of the things I noticed in these maps is that you can see right here, like these maps are produced by different countries or in different places, right? And what I noticed was that there are some maps that are a little bit more forthcoming than others when it comes to identifying who is in this particular area that we're talking about, that we're focusing in on. And the reason, again, that we're focusing in on this area, this territory, because remember, we started off this video looking at that there were some mysterious strikes in the northwest part of Nigeria, the northwest part of Nigeria. And so the question is, who are those people in the northwest part of Nigeria, according to the old maps, right? And so this is also one of the questions we are going to answer, most high willing. All right, so now we've kind of skipped ahead, can't really look at this map here. Let's see, this is from Venice, 1448. I don't think there's a whole lot in this one. Yeah, not a whole lot in this map as well. They got some other name here, Genoa region, right? But at the very least, we see that they know that there's somebody in that area. And the question is, family, who is that somebody? All right, so we go down to 1565. So remember, I'm just going to keep saying it just for those who may be joining late. The Israelites or the people of Judah that were in Spain and Portugal, 1492, they were expelled. A lot of them came over into Africa. So they started off in northern Africa, in Morocco, and then because of the persecution from the Arabs, they fled into the interior. They fled across the Sahara, went into South or West Africa and settled there. Basically, family, our forefathers were just trying to find some peace and shalom. But unfortunately, they weren't living according to the law, statutes, and commandments. So, because of that blood covenant, because of the curses followed them through the desert. The curses followed them to West Africa. The curses followed them on the transatlantic slave ships, and the curses followed them to the United States or the Americas. So unfortunately, we just kept on running. But all right, so said all that to say, so now we're at 1565 and we're looking at a map from Venice. And again, let's take a look at that area. Let's see what this cartographer called that area. What do they call this area? Portugal. La Mina de Portugal. Now, you have to understand how odd this name is, right? Because remember, there was a whole bunch of folks that was expelled from Portugal, but then there's a place on the map called the Mina of Portugal. Now, the Portuguese at this time, they did have some enclaves on the coast, right? They did have some relationships, like in Benin. They had some relationships in Benin. They had some relationships with folks in Sao Tome, right? Even in Angola. But this is the interior in Africa. Interior in Africa. And again, this is that sweet spot that we were looking at before, right? Because Nigeria is like right over here. The way I always kind of picture or find Nigeria in these ancient maps, I look for this curve right here. And so right at the curve, I just go straight up. And usually Nigeria is on the right and Benin's on the left. So, and what we're going to look at in this these few maps, we're going to look at to the left and to the right of this line that goes straight up from this bend right here. So Nigeria, Benin, right? And so again, in this, and we know that on the left-hand side, this is where we would see Judah. The kingdom of Judah shows up in maps in the 1700s, right? And like I said before, the question is, what was this area called before the 1700s on those old maps? So one of the maps that we come across, as you can see, instead of the kingdom of Judah, we see a place called La Mina de Portugal, just above it. And I will add into here as well, sometimes the scale is hard to pick up on these maps. So, you know, I'm not sure how north this is, you know what I mean? Because I'm looking for some landmarks like mountains and mountain ranges and stuff like that. But sometimes that's kind of hard to pick up in these maps or bodies of water like lakes and stuff. Like I think this lake is pretty noticeable, right? But you can see, again, the Mina de Portugal, all right? Kind of sort of around where the kingdom of Judah will eventually show up in these maps. Israelites get kicked out of Portugal, Spain. And a little bit later, we have this place called La Mina de Portugal. Well, that's interesting. But let's keep going. All right, so let's go to our next map. So that was from 1565, right, family? And so this map right here doesn't have a whole lot of details in the interior. You can see the coast right here. So I don't think that's going to do us any good because that is the coast. Just to click on it, just to show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, it just shows the coast. It doesn't show the interior. So that's not going to help us to figuring out this place that's in the interior. And this one doesn't really have a whole lot of information on the interior, I don't think. Yep, because it's called Genoa. So the maps that I'm seeing these names so far, because the Kingdom of Judah shows up in French maps and English maps. So those are the ones that I'm looking for the most part. I will tell you that the German maps, they do not show, at least the ones that I've come across, they do not show the Kingdom of Judah until like the 1800s, like until everybody else already reported it, then they finally stick it on their maps. So again, you know, these German maps are they act suspicious in my opinion. All right, but let's keep going. So we're going to scroll down. So we were in like around the 1500s. So now we're getting into the 1600s. So now here we are, 1600s, 1619, that date should ring a bell. 1619, Jamestown, Virginia. The first folks have a last name of Negro, whose surname Negro actually ties back to Spain and Portugal, ties back to the exilarchs or the leaders of the diaspora in Spain and Portugal, but that's a whole different video. But 1619, you know it in your textbooks, family. And we also do know that there were Israelites / Negroes over here in the States before then, but 1619 is the date that we track for other purposes. So 1619, but the question is, so what do we find in, and this is Amsterdam, in the French maps in 1619? Again, the French, they're the ones that will eventually have the Kingdom of Judah in their maps. So who and what is in the place of the Kingdom of Judah in the 1600s? Because it's not going to be there before the 1700s. So let's take a look. All right, so let's zoom in. So it doesn't say Judah right here, because this is Benin, right? This is what eventually will be the slave coast, what will eventually will be the Kingdom of Judah. And right around this area, we saw it was called the Portuguese before, right? It was something of Portugal, of Portuguese before. But now it says Ludeus. That should sound a little bit familiar to your family. Ludeus. What in the world is Ludeus? Well, to translate that, let me show you. Let's go over to Google Translate. All right, so hopefully, again, you can see my screen. So we're over in Google Translate. And so we have this weird map that's called, has this place called Ludeus. Ludeus. And so what we're going to do is that we're going to translate that, because I just realized that I didn't have my other, actually, when I go to a commercial, I'm going to try to grab my two references to show you how the name has changed over time. Basically, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but let's do this. Let's translate this first. So we're going to use Hausa, because Hausa is in the territory of, Hausa was in this territory. So the Hausa language, right? So we're going to use Hausa language that was right here to figure out what in the world Ludeus means. And I see Brother Jay's Hostile says Judas. Well, let's see. So we're going to type in Ludeya. We're going to leave the S off for now. And as you can see, like Brother Jay Hostile said, Judea. Judea. In Hausa language. Judea is the land of Judah. Judea is the land of Judah. And to prove that, let's go to Judea, just so that you can see. Judea is a historical mountainous region in the Levant named after the ancient Israelite tribe of Judah. So again, family, when we look at this map, before the French called it the Kingdom of Judah, it was called Ludea, which in Hausa means Judea. All right, Judea, which is the land of Judah. So this is just to go to show you, family, that this predates the Kingdom of Judah on those ancient maps. And this also goes to show you that the Israelites were over in that land for a very long time after 1492, right? After 1492, we start to see them over in this area. But maybe that was just a one-off, right? So that was Amsterdam, 1619. Let's see if that shows up in any other maps. And to that, let's go over here. And this is one from 1640, Amsterdam. Again, a French map. And so here we go. Here we are. Going to pull up the French map. Remember that bow I was telling you about? If you go up, Nigeria is on the right. And let's zoom in. Let's go up to here, and you can see it. It's spelled differently. Ludeus with an E. Ludea. Ludeus. Just to go to show you that even in that same territory, it is still called Ludea, which in Hausa refers to Judea, the territory of the tribe of Judah. And let's just click through a few more of these, family, just to show you that this isn't just a one-off. So we saw that one. This is another one from Amsterdam. And you can see it's pretty much rinse and repeat. Ludeus is going to be in the same spot over and over and over again. Even when we come down to, so this one doesn't have a whole lot, doesn't have any information on the interior. This just has the coast. So for those types of maps, we're just going to skip over those, family. Like this one, we're going to skip over those. 1699, London. So this is the English map. So we were looking at the French maps before. So now we're going to go to London. This is before the Kingdom of Judah was showing up in these maps. And so now you have the England calling the Kingdom of Judah, calling the slave coast Ludeus. Ludeus. All right. So that's just confirmation from, from another country. And that's from 1669, of course, in 1670. And this is from London as well. And what we do is that we find the bow, and then you go up and you'll find Ludeus right there. All right. So again, there's a people that's right around there that's living in a land at that time was called Judea. And, you might get a little bored at this point because it's pretty much going to be the same story for maps that have the interior mapped out. This one doesn't. But I just want to show you, family, that it is consistent, except, of course, when you look at these German maps, like this is from Frankfurt, they tend to not have our places in there. Like in the German map, they don't have nothing. They try to, I'm telling you, family, it's like these guys, they try to erase our history. They don't even put us on the maps. But it's interesting because at this time in France, the Israelites were able to escape from Spain over into France. There's a territory between France and Spain that was called Navarre back in the day. But today it is called Basque, right? It's called Basque. And we're going to talk about that a little bit before we hop off, because there's some important DNA information that ties all this together along with this name that we're seeing. All right, so we keep going. So far we looked up on Google Translate and we saw that Ludea is Judea. Judea is the place where the tribe of Judah lived. So the place where the tribe of Judah lived is now in West Africa after they were expelled from Spain and Portugal. And then as we get closer to the 1700s, because a couple of things happen in the 1700s. In the 1700s, this is when we start to see where the actual name of the slave coast come into being. So at this point in time, the slave coast isn't defined in the way that we understand it to be. So even all the way up to 1690, and we look at this map, and this is a French map, and we zoom in. This is the slave coast right here. Slave coast is called Ludeus. Ludeus. Sometimes it's spelled with the A, sometimes it's spelled with the E, sometimes it's spelled with the S at the end, sometimes it's not spelled with the S at the end. And that's one of the things Most High Will, I will grab for you when I play one of these commercials. But let's keep going. Amsterdam, same story. Still see Ludeus all the way up to the 1700s. So this is what the slave coast was called in the 1700s. And here we go, family, as we keep on going. So now we're in the 1700s. And in the 1700s, let me show you here, family. I'm going to take you to Slave Coast. And just to show you that in the Slave Coast, it says the earliest known use of slave coast is in the early 1700s. OED's earliest evidence of slave coast is from 1702. Right, so 1702 is when slave coast starts to emerge as a place, right, on West Africa. We can also see the same thing on the Encyclopedia Britannica, although they don't give us a specific date. They just say slave coast in the 18th and 19th century. Of course, 18th century is the 1700s. So same thing, family, right? So slave coast, 1700s. And the reason why I talk about that is because in the 1700s, in the maps, we start to see a change in the maps once the slave coast gets defined. So slave coast is defined. Now we have the kingdom of Judah. That's what R-E-D-E, Judah. In previous maps, it was called Judea. Now it is called Judah. Now it is called Judah. And again, you can see this in different maps. Of course, it was called Judah and other things. And this is one of the things I was telling you about as far as the the territory, because up here in this map, it doesn't have the kingdom of Judah, but it has Ludeus, right? And you can't really tell how far up this is, right? So that's the thing when I said when it comes to perspectives, you don't really see how far up this is. Like, does it eventually become a separate place? That I don't know. That requires a different research. And peace and blessings. Peace and blessings, Pastor Kelly, cuz. Thank you for your generous donations. Peace and blessings. Thank you for your super chat. Thank you, Deba Seshaba. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name, but thank you also for your super chat. Hallelujah. But here, check this out, family. So 1719, and this is Judah, right? This is Judah. Now, also on this map, you have Judah down here, but then up here you have Lamb. So you have Lamb. So again, family, if I were to look at this, it looks like there's a mountain range up here, and I tried to find this mountain range on the present day maps. I really couldn't find this in the topography of west coast of Africa. So feel free to take a look at it when you can. But in any case, in this map, you see a separation. You see Judah, closer to the coast, and then you see Lamb a little bit underneath this body of water up here. So you might be saying, all right, Brother Benai, but what is Lamb? All right, so let me show you real quick what Lamb is. So for that, let me stop sharing my screen. Just have to switch over here. And then I'm going to switch over to I have a PDF with Lamb in it. All right, bear with me just for a second, family. I'm going to see if I can pull it up a different way because it's not coming up on my screen. Let's see, downloads, screens. Nope, I want to share that. Downloads, videos. All right, so let's try a different way. All right, so while I try to pull this up, let me run this quick commercial, family, while I try to pull up Lamb. So let's do this here.
In the shadows of power, deals are made to erase the truth. While politicians collude to strip your freedom of speech, targeting those African Americans who dare question the lies, the Anti-Defamation League sends our neighborhood police officers to the foreign state of Israel for secret training, only to return reprogrammed to Black communities with a hidden agenda and a hidden purpose. SNAP vanishes overnight,
And the NAACP? Silent, absent. So who stands for you when the system turns against its own? When doxing terminates jobs without mercy, scouring LinkedIn and other job sites to discover your employment, your livelihood, determined to fire you, leave you homeless, all for speaking your truth. But while the darkness gathers, a force rises to fight for truth and protect African Israelites at home and abroad. Most High Yah willing, the African Israelite Justice Foundation, the shield against these hidden threats, the fierce voice reclaiming the silenced truths. Join and support the African Israelite Justice Foundation today to expose the shadows and establish a lasting change.
All right. Looks like I got it working. Let's see here. Hey, Pascal, let me know if you want to hop on here as well. All right. So looks like let me do one thing, family. Let's bring this off. I'm going to bring this up. And let's do a few things here. Got that in private browsing. All right. So the purpose of me bringing this up, fam, I want to show you about Lamb Lamb, because remember, Lamb Lamb was shown on the screen. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this to help explain when Lamb Lamb shows up on that map. And again, in various maps, so we have some maps will show the Kingdom of Judah being that entire area. Some maps will show the Kingdom of Judah being closer to the coast. And in this last map that we were showing, it showed Kingdom of Judah closer to the coast, but then it showed Lamb Lamb closer to that spot that we were looking at that before, that they were calling Ludea, right? Or closer to the spot that in the, let's see, the maps from the 1500s, and we'll go back and take a look at it, it called it a territory of Portugal, or area of Portugal, right in that area. But in any case, here we are, we're looking at Lamb Lamb, and you can see where it says the land of Lamb Lamb. Let me bring back my, there we go. Testing. All right, there we go. All right, the land of Lamb Lamb. It says boundaries. The land of Lamb Lamb is to the south. Let's drop down to inhabitants. It says, according to the accounts of the people of the neighboring countries, the natives of Lamb Lamb are Jews. The natives of Lamb Lamb are Jews. The greater part of them are plunged in ignorance and unbelief. The Negroes who live on the banks of the river, which rises from the mountains to the south of Melili, and people think that Melili is Mali, right? It says, go naked, carry on no trade, have no regard for marriage, nor any sense of what is right. They are the most prolific of men. They are possessed of camels and goats. Their food consists of milk of their goats and camels, the fish that they catch, and dried camel's flesh. The people of the neighboring countries seize upon them at all seasons by various artifices, carry them away to their own country, and sell them in strings to the merchants. So again, these are the people that are being taken into slavery. These are the people that are being taken into slavery. And it says, vast numbers of them are brought every year to the further west. Hallelujah. So just wanted to show you that it is recorded by historians that the people of Lamb Lamb are Jews. And not only that, that the people of Lamb Lamb are the ones that are being taken to the west coast of Africa. And let me do a couple of things, fam. I'm going to actually go back over to our webpage. And I'm going to share my screen on this front. And let's see here. Yep, so we'll share this page. And then because so we were here before, and just to show you, like, this is Lamb, this is the Kingdom of Judah. And I also want to introduce you to another awesome resource, and shout out to brother Dante Fortson. This is his webpage, Black History in the Bible. It's Black History in the Bible. He has a webpage called, or a page within his webpage called the Kingdom of Judah WIDA Mapping Project. This is an awesome project. And in this project, you can see all these different maps, right? And this one starts in the 1700s. And this is what I was talking about, family, is that starting in the 1700s is when we start to see the Kingdom of Judah. But what I just showed you is that in the 1600s, that same territory was being called Ludeas, which is Judeas, or Judea in Hausa language. And just to flip through some of Brother Dante's maps, because you can see it here, where he has, maps from France, and actually it goes to some of the same links that we were checking out before. But same thing, you can see Lamb, right? If you guys want to see the same maps, you can see Lamb, and you can see Judah. And actually, I'm going to copy paste this link so that you guys can take a look. Well, let me do it afterwards, because I don't want us to crash the server or anything like that. So let's do that, family. But yeah, I will grab that link and drop it in the chat. But let's just skip ahead. We're not going to go through all these different maps, but just to show you that there's consistency through, shown in these maps. Slave Coast, right? You can see it right there, Slave Coast. And let's do another one here. Let's see if we can find one that has the Kingdom of Judah prominently so that you can see it. And these are those German maps I was telling you about. For the most part, Germany kind of held off on identifying the Kingdom of Judah on the west coast of Africa until those later maps. But it seemed as though France and England had no problems listing the Kingdom of Judah in their maps. And let's do this one, 1747. So this is after, So in this one, as you can see, family, so the Kingdom of Judah is further up. Like, remember, and that's what I was saying, in some of these maps, sometimes it's closer to the coast, and some maps it's closer to the top, right? And they have this little mountain range. I guess that mountain range is hard to see in these new maps. It doesn't show up. But in any case, like I said, I just use this curve in the land right here. And you go up from here. To the right is present day Nigeria. To the left is Benin. And to the left is where you have the Kingdom of Judah. To the left is where we have the land of Lauda, or the territory of Judea, and also the Lamb. So the Lamb are up here in this area as well. Hallelujah. So that is the Lamb. And let me pull up a couple of slides for you. Let's look at our files. So we took a look at the Slave Coast. We took a look at that. Took a look at those maps as well. And the other thing I want to show you, family, is this. And I'm going to pull this up. I actually had all this stuff pulled up, but my computer froze me, so I had to do a quick reboot. And so all the things that I had lined up on my desktop, I have to pull it back up again. So let's do this here. So we will pull up the I'm going to pull up a couple of maps for you. And this is just to kind of give you an idea of where those strikes that Donald Trump and friends have executed or implemented over in Nigeria. So far, when we took a look at those maps, we saw that in the maps that the territory that they struck is kind of sort of near Lam Lam. But just want to show you that Lam Lam isn't the only thing that's over in that area. Or they're not the only group that's over in that area. So to that end, I'm going to pull up this. Let's go to, let's see. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share a different piece of evidence with you. Let's do, all right. So I know that's kind of small, but in this one, so this is just a map of the DNA of E1B1A. And so wherever E1B1A is in the highest concentration is where it is the darkest blue on this map. So you can see the whole slave coast where the kingdom of Judah was. And you can also see it right over here, right, where we would see Lam Lam and also Bambrus. So Bambrus was also a place, a people that were associated with being Judah. So you can see, family, that not only was the kingdom of Judah and Lam Lam areas or territories that are associated clearly with the tribe of Judah, but also Bambrus. But the main takeaway here, family, is that I want you to see that it was these people of Judah were arrayed in a line, so to speak, all the way from the coast into the interior. And Bambrus, it was even up past this body of water that we were talking about before. All right. And this is what we see when we take a look at the DNA. DNA goes up past Benin, all the way up into this area right here. So it matches where these three tribes of Judah were located. It matches where those three tribes of Judah were located. And then the other thing I'm going to show you here, so that's ties in the DNA part of it, but I'm going to show you also another DNA fact or interesting fact that that also ties this together as well. And for that, I'm going to bring up, let me pull up. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to share another screen with you. So bear with me just for a second. I'm just going to bring it up. And we are going to do this screenshot. And peace and blessings. So Pastor Kelly, I know he's familiar with this, and Cousin Majors with Boom Church. So shout out to Boom Church family, and shout out to We Woke Now. And they are aware of what I'm stating or can testify to what I'm stating. So back in the day, we all ran our DNA, right? I ran my DNA with ancestry.com. You know, some may have ran their DNA with 23andMe, or you know, there's a whole number of different DNA groups or companies out there. And what you can do is that you can actually download your DNA, and then you can upload it to companies like, My Ancient Ancestor or Ancestry.com, or you can actually upload it to GEDmatch. And what these other tools allow you to do is that these other tools allow you to test your DNA against other groups. Now, what you're looking at is you're looking at the DNA from GEDmatch, right? This is the DNA from GEDmatch. So I uploaded my DNA profile to GEDmatch. And in this particular comparison, what you see on the screen is this is a genetic distance comparison. So the lower the number, so you see distance off to the right. And so the lower the number, what that means is that the closer related you are. So when I ran my DNA against GEDmatch in this particular group, what GEDmatch came back with, it said, whoa, Brother Benaiah, your closest DNA match, 1.07, is with the Bambaran people and Spain and Portugal. or Spain and France. Because remember, I told you that when the Israelites were, fled out of Portugal, some of them went into Africa. Some of them went into like Morocco and North Africa, and then further down into the west coast of Africa. Well, while others went up into, there's a place during that time, it was called Navarre, right? It's called Navarre, and then today it's called Basque. And what I'm sharing with you, family, is that when I used JetMatch said, well, Brother Benaiah, you have DNA that matches the people in Basque, where the Israelites, when they fled out of Spain and Portugal. And Brother Benaiah, you have DNA that matches the Bambaran, who were also said to have been from the tribe of Judah. You have Bambaran, you have the Lamb, and you have the kingdom of Judah down at the bottom. Now, what I will say is that Lamb over time on those maps disappears. So, and actually Bambaran on some of those maps actually disappears as well. And the kingdom of Judah obviously disappeared, because when we take a look at the maps of Africa today, we no longer see the kingdom of Judah. We actually had to go back to the old maps to find all this stuff. But it looks as though Lamb was one of the first to go. Now, I don't know if that was due to persecution. I don't know if they kind of dispersed. We do know, based off of the reference that I just read a few minutes ago, that the Lamb were targeted for slavery, like that. They say that all these countries were reaching into Lamb, grabbing their slaves and putting them on these, I'm adding this, but transatlantic slave ships. And so to that end, we can't expect the Lamb to either remain in that area or, maybe they got dispersed. Maybe they came back after a while, but in any case, family, they were there. They were in that area, right? So that's what, and I believe that's why the Lamb disappears from the map. Like you no longer see it on the map. But in any case, we have folks like the Bambaran that we can run our DNA against, and we have our Limba people in South Africa. So the point of sharing this with you here, family, is to show you that according to DNA, I can tie back to the Bambaran who are associated with the Israelites. I can tie, all this talk that I'm telling you about as far as Spain and Portugal, my DNA, as well as many of yours, ties back to the places where the Israelites in Spain and Portugal fled to. And the reason why it's not 100%, like if you look at this breakdown, it's mostly over in Bambaran, right? And then you just have a small residual over in Basque or the French South. And the reason for that is because they were expelled from Spain. They were expelled from Portugal. They fled from those places over into Africa. So when that occurs, the bulk of the people that you match are going to be located in the places that they fled to. And you're going to have a residual from the place that they fled from. This is the profile that we would see in that scenario. Now, I also have another match, a way of confirming this data. And this is one of the things that I was going to follow up in a follow-up video. I forgot the name of the first video, but basically it's, how do you know that you're an Israelite? And what I'm going to show you, Most High willing, is how to trace your Israelite heritage through your name. Through your name. Some folks will take, we do the basic thing. We'll take our name and we'll say, well, hey, my name is Johnson. Shout out to Pastor Johnson out at Fort Lauderdale. Peace and blessings to the ILG family in Fort Lauderdale. Family, if you are in the Fort Lauderdale area, definitely go and check out Pastor Johnson and the ILG family. Family, you will not be disappointed. Hallelujah. But bear with me just for a second. I'm going to pull this back up. Yep, hang on a second, fam. I want to pull up my screen back up here. I just got to change the thought here. Let me do a change of screen. And let me do. This is for the benefit of those who are just joining. But like I was saying before, family, and that is the your name, and even the name. I was giving a shout out to Pastor Johnson and the ILG family, but even Johnson is a Spanish and Portuguese Israelite last name. And there's history behind that. Even when we look at, when I do the research on what happened to the Yaya Negroes in Spain and Portugal, and I'm doing research into what names that they changed their names to when they came over into the States. And this is what makes, following your lineage difficult. And that is because depending on the path that your forefathers or your ancestors took, coming, whether it be out of Spain and Portugal or some of these other places, your name may have changed. Like your name may have changed depending on what places your ancestors stopped off in and how long they stayed there. Like I was just showing you my DNA, which had, which shows you the Bambara and it shows you France. Well, my last name, my government last name, has a little French in it. And the part of my last name, Bert, is something that gets added to names when they go to France. Names when they go to France typically get a Bert or ETT added to their last name during that time. And that's just one of the things, most high willing, we will review and go over. But again, not to deviate too much, but just to show you, family, that there are ways for us to trace this back, although it is difficult because depending on the path that our forefathers took, because the easy button for us is we'll take our last names and then we'll put it into, run it through Google and say, hey, my last name is Brown. Where does Brown come from? And Google will say Brown came from here, right? But sometimes, and actually Brown, shout out to Bishop Majors, Brown is literally a Sephardic Israelite name. You can't get any more pure than that, than having a last name Brown. Like you're in there from the start when you have a last name of Brown. All right. But let's kind of wrap this up, family. Like I said, I just wanted to show you this, family, and that is when we look at these old maps, and I'm on raremaps.com, and I have this sorted by map from oldest to newest. And this starts in the 1500s. And what I showed you earlier was that the maps that have the Kingdom of Judah in it, which are these maps down here, typically show up in the 1700s. All right, 1700s, we see maps that have the Kingdom of Judah in the where the slave coast is located. So I'm just trying to scroll down to a good Kingdom of Judah map for you real quick, just to illustrate what I'm talking about. Like I said, for the benefit of those that may have just joined. And this is actually one, I think it's also on Brother Dante's website as well. Yep. And where it says Rea de Judah, that's the Kingdom of Judah. So in these maps, you start to see the Kingdom of Judah in the 1700s. But praise be to the Most High, what I'm showing you is that before the 1700s, that territory went through several name changes. Initially, in the oldest maps that we can find, we see that the name was Regin Orgain. It's Latin. I'm not Latin, so I'm just doing the best I can as far as pronouncing this stuff. But, it was given this name. They didn't really know it based off of the research that I did, family. It's like they didn't really know who was there, speaking from the perspective of the Europeans. But then over time, in 1565, after the Israelites were expelled from Spain and Portugal, and after the name Negro changed to mean somebody that was born in Africa, which was in 1555, and this is where you can actually come here and you can type in Negro definition. All right. And if it pulls up the Webster Dictionary, you go into Webster Dictionary, and this is definition for Negro, and it tells you the first time it was used was in 1555. So 1555, the word Negro referred to somebody that's in Africa. And then, of course, in 1555, I got multiple maps open. Let me close this one. In 1555, all right, this is actually in 1565. We have that area now is called La Mina de Portugal. De Portugal? And just shows you how odd it was for this area to be Portugal. Of course, they got a lion right there as well, right? But this is the area where it was either the Kingdom of Judah, the area that was going to be called Ludea, right? And again, it's in scale, it's kind of hard to judge how far up this is from the coast. So you just have to kind of just do a best guess from that. But it looks as though, family, just from my perspective, it looks as though this could be, of course, where the Kingdom of Judah was, maybe even where Lamb was. But anyways, it's right in this area right here. Basically, they know there's some people there that they're associated with Portugal, right? You don't see anywhere else over here on this map that has Portugal on it, right? It's only this area right here. And then after that is when we start to see Ludea show up in these maps. And this is Ludeus show up in these maps. So before it was called the Kingdom of Judah, it was called Ludeus. And Ludeus, when we looked it up, and we have to put it in without the S, is Judea. Ludea in Hausa language is Judea. So you literally have the slave coast being referred to as the home of Judah. Hallelujah. All right. Well, that hopefully advances the research when it comes to, finding out where Judah was or is in Africa. And also, hopefully, this also goes to show you that when the U.S. is making these strikes over in Africa, that these strikes, for one reason or another, they are close to areas where our ancestors were. Right? We don't really have a whole lot of information as to where they are today. But one thing we know for sure is that they were right around that area where Trump dropped those bombs on Christmas Day. So just letting you know. Hallelujah. All right. And just looking in the chat, I see it says my last name means Colburn.
Cool thing. Follow me.